you never get in your car and just start driving. Especially as an entrepreneur or a leader, because you just don't have the time to do that. You're very clear where you want to go and what you want to do.
Yeah.
So why not be clear in your life as well of what your purpose is? And I think one of the greatest things you can do in life is figuring out that as soon as possible.
After getting to know you for the last year and watching you speak a couple times, I'm actually pretty excited about sitting down and talking to you and getting a little bit deeper on some of the conversations that we've had. So thanks for your time.
No, thanks for having me here. It's so great.
Yeah.
It's so nice to be in Minneapolis.
So let's start from the beginning.
Yes.
Where did you grow up?
I was born in Malaysia and spent my early childhood there, and then my family migrated to Perth, Western Australia.
Okay.
And I did a bit of high school and university there before moving to Hawaii, where I lived as a monk. But I'm of Sri Lankan ancestry, and that's the brown mochaccino color on me.
Okay. When did you start thinking that, hey, I want to be a monk? What was that process like, and where did that come from?
There was a monk that visited my home when I was about 4 or 5 years old, around that time, and my mom had invited him into the home and offered him some money and food and water, as you would traditionally in our culture. And as soon as I saw him, I said, that's me. And that was the first thought I had of becoming a monk.
Okay.
And then from there, it was almost like some water had been poured on a seed and it started to sprout, and then that thought just grew and grew, and I thought more and more about it. And
how old were you?
About 4 or 5.
So you were really young.
Yeah, I was very young. And I didn't even know what a monk was. It was a matter of learning about him, and he was dressed up traditionally, as you've seen me dress up when I present, in my robes and beads and face paint and all the accoutrements.
Yep.
So yeah, when I saw him, I just really resonated with that. But it wasn't until later on in my life, till I was about 7, 8 years old or so, that I realized my goal wasn't really to be a monk. It was enlightenment. That was what I was seeking, and the monk was the more efficient, effective way to get to enlightenment. So being a monk itself was never the driving force.
Yeah.
It was the enlightenment. The monk was just the path to get to that.
Okay. And so you went to university for engineering.
Yes, electrical engineering.
And then after that, you decided to go into the monastery.
I actually decided to be a monk, like I said, from 4 or 5 years old. It was really about trying to find a mentor, a teacher that could train me, and I didn't meet my teacher till later on in life. While I was in university, and I was ready to leave my engineering degree and go join the monastery, but he wouldn't allow it. He wanted me to actually complete my education and then come join the monastery. So as soon as I knew I passed my last exam, I left. I didn't even stay for my graduation or anything.
What's the process of getting into a monastery? Do you have to fill out an application?
Yeah, you fill up an application online, and then you go in for like a retina scan and fingerprint, and they do background check on you. No, just kidding. You actually get to know the monastery. Our monastery is very tech savvy, and we get to know the teacher, and you read his books and what he's taught. The first thing is really making sure your philosophies are aligned.
Okay.
And then you get to know the teacher, he gets to know you, and that process happens actually through email, unless you meet in person, because the monastery is in Hawaii. And then you apply, so to speak, by asking to go to the monastery to do a 6-month training period to see and experience what being a monk is like.
Okay.
Because most people's idea of a monk is watching Hollywood movies, and it's really nowhere close to that.
So once you get in, you do your 6 months.
Yes.
That's a trial period to see if you're monk material.
Right. It's a trial period. At the end of the 6 months, the monks have to want you to do the next 6 months, which is a second trial period.
Okay.
And if they don't want you, then obviously you leave, you're done.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to, then you can leave as well.
Okay.
So if you make it through the first 6 months, then you do another 6 months. And then quite often after 12 months, they send you home for a month Because usually that's the breaking point. People go home and they say, yeah, I'm just going to go home. I'll do my 1 month at home and then I'll be right back. And they never come back.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So when you come back, do you become a true monk at that point?
Right. Then you take vows.
Okay.
You take vows and you officially become a monk. And the vows last 2 years. And then every 2 years you renew them for the first 10 to 14 years.
Oh, wow.
Before you take lifetime vows. So it's almost like you're dating and then you get married.
Okay. So what's a day in the life of a monk?
A day in the life. So most monks followed a pretty rigid schedule for the day. We had to be in the temple at 5:30 in the morning, and there was a ceremony from 5:30 to 6. From 6 to 7 we meditated as a group for 1 hour. So contrary to what most people believe, at least in our tradition, we weren't meditating all day. Then from 7 to 7:30 it was exercise time, so a requirement was that we exercised half an hour a day.
What kind of exercise did you guys do in the monastery?
All kinds of stuff.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Yes, ninja, Jedi training,
Okay.
Levitation, all kinds of stuff, right? Monk stuff, classified usually. But yeah, no, we would run. We lived right on a river, so there was actually a lake.
Okay.
Well, it wasn't a lake; it was a big pond. So some monks would swim in there, some would go for a run, some would do yoga, weights, all kinds of things.
Okay.
So we'd exercise for half an hour, have breakfast, and then the monastery was divided into 5 departments that ran different aspects of the monasteries. And then the monks would pretty much work from about 8 to 12:30 in those departments, and then from 12:30 to 1 we would clean the monastery. So we were all assigned one area in the monastery to clean.
Okay.
And then 1 to 1:30 was lunch. 1:30 to 3 was siesta time, so we took a little nap because we woke up early. And we had to be in the monastery at 5. We had to be in the temple at 5:30. But so some monks woke up at 5. I woke up at 4 every day, 4 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And then basically from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. was work again, and then we had 6 to 7 was free time, and then 7 to 9 was TV. We watched TV, and then we went to bed at night, and then did it all over again the next day.
So in your studies, how did that really work? Is there a study time or a period, or how did you guys do that?
So the way my guru trained us was almost like, if you ever watch Karate Kid,
Yes.
you probably do. And the whole wax on, wax off?
Yeah.
It was kind of similar training. So the training wasn't really in a classroom where he sat with us and told us to open up to page 59 and let's read this and have a discussion about it. He would actually give us tasks and assignments to do that were very specific to each individual monk. Because there were only so few of us in the monastery, he could literally train each one personally. And those tasks and assignments that were given to us were working on certain characteristic habit patterns that he was helping us to change or overcome or develop within us.
Okay.
And that was the training.
So one unique thing about the monastery that you were in is that technology was a big piece of the monastery that you were in, and you actually got to work on MacBooks. You had an iPhone, which is really unique, I think.
Right, yes.
So can you tell me a little bit more about that and how that came about?
Yeah, one of the big things about a monastery usually, there's really 2 sides. One side is focused on developing the monks. The monks are striving for personal development and growth and enlightenment. The other part of the monastery is doing service, basically, serving the greater world. And the way my teacher did that was through sharing the tools and teachings that he had developed, or that's part of the Hindu faith that I belong to, with anybody that was interested. So many years ago, or decades ago I should say, our guru had a printing press in the monastery. So all the monks were trained on how to use a printing press. We had a newspaper called Hinduism Today that people could subscribe to and read about yoga and meditation and Hinduism and different various teachings. And then when computers came about, or desktop computers came about, he bought a Mac. And he said, well, this is the way the world's going to communicate. Yeah. So they gave up the printing press and they moved it completely to digital. And the monks started laying out the newspaper, which eventually became a magazine, on Quark Express, which was the tool that people used back in the day. And then eventually to InDesign, and everything's laid out on there. And the magazine's put together in Hawaii, FTP'd over to the mainland US. It's printed here in the States, in the mainland, and then distributed around the world.
So what technical skills did you learn in the monastery then?
I learned most of my technical skills in the monastery because before I came to the monastery, even though I was in engineering school, I used a PC.
Yeah.
Word and Excel.
Yeah.
That's about my skill level. And obviously did learn some programming and stuff in engineering school. But yeah, when I came to the monastery, learned InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator. I edit movies on Final Cut Pro. I think we used Sound Booth back then to edit talks.
Yeah.
So we were trained in doing that. I learned how to program in HTML and CSS. So built websites, hand-coded websites before. All kinds of things. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other softwares. Monks use Blackboard for accounting. We had a 4D database system which monks built themselves. They programmed and developed it where we had a huge database of almost 60,000 names and email addresses of members and congregation people around the world.
So you spent 10 years in the monastery.
Yes.
And now you're not in the monastery, but you're doing a lot of executive coaching and mentoring. You're working with a lot of entrepreneurs. What's one concept or most important thing executives that you're working with can teach the teams that work along with them?
I would say focus. One of the big things today you see is people are so distracted.
Yeah.
Right? People are distracted all the time, and hardly anybody can stay focused for a period of time. So if you're an executive and you're leading a team, wouldn't you want your team to be focused? So if you got your team members working for you 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, the question really you should be asking yourself is, how many of those 8 or 10 hours are they actually focused on what they're doing, and how many hours are spent being distracted with social media or texting or doing all kinds of other things, even interacting with colleagues in unnecessary ways.
Yeah.
So technically you should really be paying them for the time they're actually focused and doing work, and save your money and not pay them for the other hours. So developing focus within a company, I think, is necessary.
Yeah.
Not even negotiable, really.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about concentration and focus in the mind?
Yeah, for sure. So many people today are being diagnosed with ADD and ADHD and all these colorful alphabets that they throw together to create these things. I believe personally that people can't concentrate for two reasons. One is, and obviously there are some people in the world that have trouble concentrating because there's some physiological chemical imbalance or something like that, and it's a world I don't understand, but there's definitely a few of those. But the majority of the people can't concentrate for two reasons. One is they've never been taught how to concentrate, and second is they don't practice it. I mean, when you were growing up in school, did anybody give you formal training in concentration?
No, never.
No, right?
I would get in trouble when they put a box over me and I have to work underneath the box.
I had the same box too, right? But did people tell you to concentrate?
Yes, all the time.
All the time, right? But they never showed you how to.
No.
Did you play the piano?
No.
So what if I came up to you and said, "Hey Jeff, play the piano."
I can't.
Play the piano.
I don't know how.
I want you to play the piano. I mean, it's just ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? You're asking someone to do something without actually teaching them how to do it, and then you get upset with them for not being able to do it. It's the same way I see parents all the time yelling at their kids, "Concentrate, focus." Poor kids going, "I don't know how to, and you haven't taught me how to do it." So if you don't learn it, and then you don't practice it, how can you become good at it? So if you want to play the piano, you have to first learn how to play the piano. You have to get your posture right, how to lay your fingers, the chords.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to play the piano, so I don't even know what I'm talking about. But if you learn how to play the piano, then in order to be really good at it, you would have to practice it, and you have to practice a lot to become good at it. So if you don't learn it and you don't practice it, you don't become good at it. And that's why most people can't concentrate today, is because they haven't learned it and they haven't practiced it. And here's the other part to it, Jeff, is that you become good at whatever it is you practice. So if you practice distraction all day, you become really good at it. And you become an expert in distraction. So if you're a leader within a company and you have a team, and if they're really good at being distracted and that's what they practice every day, you have to understand that your team each day, each week, each month is getting better at being distracted. And you have to ask yourself, is that what you want to cultivate within your company culture? Because in November 2015, in November 2016, 12 months from today, your team will be way better at distraction than they were today. And is that what you want for your company?
Yeah, interesting.
And if you don't want, then that's something you really should fix.
So companies are changing rapidly.
Yes.
They're coming up with new products, new services. They're changing the structure of the company. People are doing different jobs. Things are rapidly changing. At the same time, like we were talking about, there's tons of distractions. There's email, there's text messages, there's constant meetings. How does a person within a company create that concentration, create that focus to do the work that they need to do?
I think the first step is hiring someone who knows how to concentrate, who can actually come in and train the team how to concentrate. Because how else would you learn it, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted to learn the piano, you'd go online and Google a piano teacher for a piano school and then go to the teacher and get formal training. And you wouldn't expect to learn how to play the piano in 2 weeks, right? You wouldn't expect to play Mozart or Beethoven in 2 months.
Yeah.
You know it's going to take months of practice before you can actually do that. So don't also have the same expectation with concentration that if you bring an expert in to teach your employees about concentration and the guy goes away after a 3-hour workshop and then you think, okay, my team should be able to concentrate now. It just doesn't work that way. Like any skill, it's an art form that requires consistent practice. There needs to be a system and processes in place to cultivate that. And the benefits of concentration is tremendous, and the benefits of the company is unparalleled. You know, if you have a team that's so focused, and we talked yesterday about the event that I spoke at with EO.
Yeah.
We talked about one of the benefits of concentration being the power of observation. It's a natural byproduct of prolonged states of concentration. So if you teach your team members to be concentrated, they become more observant. And an observation is an amazing quality to have as an entrepreneur or working in a company, because now you're able to see problems, and you're also able to see opportunities that you can take advantage of. But that whole observation is born out of a state of concentration, not out of a state of distraction.
State of being present and observing.
Right, but then that's born out of concentration.
Yeah.
So when people talk about being present or being in the now, it doesn't work. It doesn't work if you're distracted. You can only be in the now or be present if you first develop concentration.
In the monastery,
Yes.
you learned how to code, you learned how to do graphic design, you learned how to use a lot of technologies. What principles from Monkhood helped you become a better technologist?
I think it was something that I learned from one of the senior monks in the monastery, who was a really good carpenter. And I love carpentry, so I would go to our wood shop and work with him, and he was an amazing carpenter. And one of the things I really learned from him was about using the right tool for the right job and taking care of that tool and keeping the wood planes really sharp and oiled and nicely put away, and taking care of the tool, and really also understanding the tool and how it works. So I think, and I've taken that principle from the wood shop to technology, and actually taking the time to understand the software that you're working with. So I'll give you an example. I love photography. It's a passion, hobby of mine. And when Adobe came out with Lightroom, I was very excited, and because before I tried using iPhoto, which is a horrible product, so I'm sorry to say, Apple. But so I downloaded Lightroom, played with it for a couple of hours, got very frustrated because I wasn't clear what I was doing. Then I went on lynda.com, watched about 8 hours of tutorials, and then now I know how to use Lightroom fairly well. And then every now and then I'll watch the latest tutorials with the latest updates and stuff like that. But understanding the software, right? Understanding the tool and understanding what it can really do and how it functions allows you to do more. And I think most people don't take the time to really understand the tool sometimes. So I think as someone who loves technology, you don't need many tools.
Yeah.
You just need a few tools, and you need to understand those few tools really well, and then you can create really amazing things.
Yeah.
And the same with the mind too, right? We spoke about this last night at the event. We have the most amazing tool in our head, yet there's no manual for it. And very few people ever take the time to understand how their mind works. But imagine if you could really use your mind and utilize it to its full potential, what you could create in your life. So the same way with software.
So what do you believe, from your experience, can make tech executives specifically more effective as leaders?
I would say first step is having a really clear vision of where you want to go, right? And because that helps you to focus. Because if you don't really know where you want to go, it's very hard to focus. If you're clear of your vision, you know where to focus, you know what to focus on, and it also allows you then to be able to manage your energy. And it's a topic that I talk about a lot.
Yeah.
You've got so many people wanting so many things from you all day long. Knowing having the ability, I should say, to discriminate where to wisely invest your energy throughout the day, I think is a crucial skill that a tech executive actually needs to cultivate in life. But you won't know where to put your energy if you don't know where you're going. And it's the same case with life, right? People have no idea in the sense of purpose in life, what their purpose in life, what they want to do in life, so their energy is scattered all over the place.
Yeah.
So first have a clear vision of what it is you want, develop concentration, develop focus. I think it's the greatest tool for a leader is having unwavering focus. And then it's just a matter of investing your energy into that single-pointed focus to manifest your vision.
That's
and
great.
Then everybody else is following suit. The whole team is. But if you're distracted as a leader, your team's going to be distracted. You cannot expect your team to be focused when you are distracted. You're just deceiving yourself. It's like every parent that hopes their child to be concentrated when they are so distracted.
So you're in the monk business.
I'm in the monk business, yes.
And every business has challenges and problems.
Yep.
So what are the challenges that you have in your business?
My biggest challenge in my business is me. It really is. I'm my biggest obstacle. And I say that because I have my own business, I'm an entrepreneur. I have tons of energy and tons of ideas and tons of things that I want to do. The biggest challenge is I try to do too much.
Okay.
And I always want to do too much. And it's really about narrowing that focus and harnessing it.
Yeah.
Harnessing that creativity, harnessing that energy and narrowing that focus and directing it to what is really important in my business right now in relation to where I want to go. So being very clear of my future of my business and where I want to take it, and then being very clear about the priorities of what I need to do now in order to manifest that future vision. And it's a perpetual effort in doing that almost on a daily basis.
Okay.
Because people come and be like, hey, Dandapani, I've got this great idea. What do you think? Do you want to jump in on it? I'm like, yeah, sure. Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. Sorry.
So it's really aligning your priorities to keep your energy focused on the most important things.
Right, exactly. In alignment with your future, right?
Yeah.
Of what you want to get in your future. So I've become much better at saying no to people. But what I'm actually really working very hard now personally is saying no to myself, which I've never said. People always talk about saying no to someone else, saying no to opportunities, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're a leader, one of the most important things you probably can do is saying no to yourself.
Yeah.
Every time you have an idea, every time you want to pursue something, just say no and keep the course.
Looking back,
Yeah.
what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
Not to be in a rush. I would say when I was younger, in my 20s and even my late teens, I was always in a rush for spiritual growth and personal development. This sense of I have to have enlightenment today or this weekend at the very latest. I want it now, and a sense of rush. I think there should always be a sense of urgency, but not a sense of rush. And there's a big difference between the both of those. So I would say have a sense of urgency, because your life is finite and you're only here on this planet for not a brief amount of time, but a finite amount of time. So there should be a sense of urgency, because the time is limited, but there shouldn't be a sense of rush, because by rushing, nothing good comes out of rushing.
Do you have a morning ritual?
Yes,
now
I do.
that you're out of the monastery, do you still have a morning ritual that you do? Or?
I do, and my morning ritual is consistent when I'm not traveling. When I'm traveling, it's still a little wacky at the moment. But my morning ritual is waking up, answering the call of nature, showering, changing my clothes, and then I go to my meditation room in my apartment in New York, and I do my morning practice. And that practice can go anywhere from, usually it's somewhere from an hour to an hour and a half in the morning.
Okay.
And then I go make breakfast. Usually my wife makes my breakfast, so I just grab my breakfast, which she's already made and left it in the fridge for me. And then I eat my breakfast and go to work, or sometimes work while I eat my breakfast. And answer emails and things like that. Tweet and Facebook. And I make my bed.
Oh, you make your bed.
How
Tell
can
me
I forget
about that.
Huh?
Tell me about that.
One of the things about the concept of making the bed, and a lot of people, I share this a lot in different interviews and stuff, but people don't really kind of get the concept of making the bed, because when they repeat it, it's not really what I actually told them about making the bed. The whole concept here is about developing willpower. And one of the ways to develop willpower is to finish what you begin. So what I teach people is I say, look at your average day, find an opportunity of something that repeats itself throughout every day in your life. Like, for example, going to sleep, right? You sleep every day, every morning you wake up, or hopefully you wake up, right? And so when you wake up, finish the process of sleep, right? You're finishing what you start, and the way to finish the process of sleep is to make the bed. So I make the bed not for the sake of making the bed, which is also very nice to make the bed, but I primarily make the bed because I want to finish what I begin, because that process of finishing what I begin helps me to develop willpower. And that same willpower I can use to concentrate, to focus my mind, and also accomplish the tasks and things that I want to accomplish in my life.
Interesting.
So it's my mental gym routine, if that makes sense. So
Yep.
you go to the gym and lift weights.
Yep.
I make my bed to strengthen my mental muscles, basically.
Which increases your willpower.
Which increases my willpower, yes. Right.
Which feeds right into concentration.
And feeds
focus.
into every part of your life. You know, even saying no to the extra slice of pizza that you really want to eat, but you don't need to eat.
Yeah.
And you need your willpower to go, no, I've had enough. And willpower is one of the greatest things you can develop in life.
That leads right into my last question for you
Yeah.
today. So my last question for you is, what is your purpose? And do you think people should have a purpose?
Yes, my purpose in life is for enlightenment. Right? So that's my purpose. And that word enlightenment also needs to be defined. You can't just say my purpose is enlightenment and then not clearly define to yourself what that is.
Yeah.
So my purpose is enlightenment, and yes, I do believe very strongly that people need to have a purpose in life. Because again, it allows a point of focus to where to direct your energy. And I always tell people one of the greatest things of knowing what you want in life is knowing who and what you don't want in life. And that's a true blessing. And most people spend time, get into relationships for 1, 2, 3 years and then realize they're not the right person. All those can be avoided if you knew exactly what you wanted in life. But people don't take the time, Jeff. You know, when was the last time you knew somebody who took time out of their life on a consistent basis to figure out what their purpose in life was? Probably hard to find people like that, right?
They're too busy.
They're too busy, and it's not important, right?
Yeah.
It's not important to them, and it's a very ineffective way to live. It's almost like getting in your car in the morning and have no idea where you're driving to. You'd never do that. You'd never get in your car and just start driving. especially as an entrepreneur or a leader, because you just don't have the time to do that. You're
Yeah.
very clear where you want to go and what you want to do.
Yeah.
So why not be clear in your life as well of what your purpose is? And I think one of the greatest things you can do in life is figuring out that as soon as possible.
That's great. Well, I appreciate your time and
Thank you for having me.
your wisdom.
Oh, thank you.